Hey, hope you're doing well. Glad you're here. It's been a minute. If you've been around this channel before, first of all, thanks for sticking around and coming back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you found your way here. This video is a bit of a relaunch, a restart. It's an attempt to do this more consistently. And maybe you're asking, what is this? It's you and me showing up here on a regular basis, trying to have real conversations about faith, life, culture, scripture, discipleship, and just the everyday stuff of trying to follow Jesus in a world that's often loud and distracting, confusing, and not always honest. So yeah, it's a bit of a reset. The plan, at least for now, is pretty simple. We're going to try to do this regularly. I'm not going to overpromise and then disappear for 6 months, hopefully. That seems like a bad strategy for a relaunch video. But I do want this to be a place that has some rhythm to it, some consistency, some real substance, a place where you know what you're going to get when you show up. And what you're going to get is probably going to feel pretty familiar if you listen to the podcast or followed along with some of the stuff we've done in the past. We're going to talk about the church. We're going to talk about the Bible. We'll talk about theology, but in a way that makes sense. We're going to talk about culture and the things that are shaping us, often without us realizing it. We're going to talk about discipleship and prayer and vocation and community and the weirdness of modern life and how all of that bumps up against the claims of Jesus. One of the things that's become obvious over the last few years is that most of us are hungry for honest, thoughtful, grounded conversations about faith, not just hot takes, not outrage, not just recycled church language that doesn't really connect with real life, and not just shallow positivity either. We want something deeper than that. Most of us want room to think, room to question, room to wrestle, room to be challenged, to be reminded that faith is not just about having all the right answers on paper, but about learning how to live before God with honesty, humility, courage, and hope. And that's the thing that I want this channel to be about. I want it to be a place for people who are trying to take Jesus seriously, a place for people who love the church and are frustrated with the church, a place for people who have questions, a place for people who are tired of performance and noise and want something a little more real, a place for people who are trying to figure out what faithfulness looks like in ordinary life, because most of life is ordinary. Most of life is not lived in big, dramatic spiritual moments. Most of it's lived in the routine, in work, family, in stress, in prayers that sometimes feel small, and questions that don't go away overnight, and trying to be the kind of person who is awake to the presence of God in the middle of very normal days. That's where most of us live. Now, that also means that this channel is not going to be about pretending we have everything figured out. It's not going to be polished for the sake of being polished. It's not especially interested in building some sort of religious performance platform. There's plenty of that already. What I want to do is think carefully, speak honestly, teach clearly, and hopefully offer something useful to people who are trying to follow Jesus in this particular moment. Sometimes that will mean talking about scripture. Sometimes it'll mean responding to cultural trends. Sometimes it'll mean addressing things that happen online. Sometimes it means theology or pastoral reflection. And sometimes it means asking harder questions than many people expect from usual church content. But all of it, hopefully, will come back to the same basic concern. What does it look like to be faithful here and now? What does it mean to be formed by Christ rather than just by the internet? What does it mean to be a disciple rather than just a consumer of religious content? What does it mean to live truthfully, love well, pray honestly, and remain grounded in a world that is always pulling us in a dozen other directions? That's what I care about, and that's what this space is supposed to be. So if you've been here before, thanks for hanging in there, coming back. If you listened to the podcast before, you'll probably recognize the vibe pretty quickly. If you're new, I hope you stick around. And if this kind of content is helpful for you, then subscribe, follow, share it with somebody, leave a comment, all those normal YouTube things. But more than anything, I just hope that this can become a place where people find something steady, something thoughtful, something a little more rooted than what so much of the internet tends to offer. We need more spaces for slow thinking. We need more spaces for real theology, more spaces for honest conversation and discipleship. We need more spaces that are not driven entirely by outrage or novelty or whatever the algorithm is demanding this week. So that's the goal. We're back, and we're going to try to do this regularly, and we're going to see where it goes. So I'm glad you're here. I'm excited to be doing this again, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. See you soon.